Kidron Valley, in the old city of Jerusalem, sits this odd-looking chapel called Dominus Flavit. From the outside, the chapel is shaped like a big teardrop. On the inside, the architects designed the worship space so that the walls give a continual damp feeling of teariness. The walls continually sweat. Inside the chapel, one can look at the altar cross directly out through the window with a panoramic view of the old city of Jerusalem. And down below, on the front of the altar, is a picture of how Jesus described himself as he lamented over Jerusalem, the place where faithfulness shines like the sun and where creation's brokenness gets magnified 1,000 times. The picture one sees on the front of this altar is a mosaic medallion of a white hen with a golden halo around her head. Her red comb resembles a crown, and her wings are spread wide to shelter the yellow chicks that cuddle around her feet. Setting his course and heart toward Jerusalem, Jesus describes himself as a mother, using the picture of a protected bird whose holy wings provide shelter for her vulnerable chicks. In the same breath, Jesus describes the dangerous situation that the mother hen faces. He dares to call one of the gospel's political threats, Herod Antipas, a fox. This was a term used by Jewish rabbis of his time as an epithet for a crafty, conniving, and corrupt leader. Everyone in Galilee knew Herod's way. The fox's way was the way of intimidation, fast horses, and crackerjack armies. The fox's way is still the way of racial superiority, deceptive speech, and terror attacks like the one at the mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, just a few days ago. Herod is still alive and well in our midst. Jesus is no dreamy, naive idealist. He recognizes the hard facts that Jerusalem has an unholy history of squashing God's gifted messengers and rejecting God's enduring message of steadfast love. So, Jesus weeps. He laments. He cries. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. The Lord weeps. As a parent, if you have ever loved someone you could not protect, then you begin to understand the depth of Jesus' lament over Jerusalem. All you can do is open your arms good and wide. You cannot force anyone to walk into or accept your protection. This is the most vulnerable and exposed posture in the world. Wings spread, breast exposed, but if you mean what you say, then this is how you stand. And this is the extent you will go to offer love and protection. Even if the chicks opt to exercise their freedom to reject that costly love and grace, even if the chicks opt to go the other way, the way of the fox, This is the posture you remain determined to maintain, even if all the chicks run off with the dangerous foxes and go after the false securities offered by the wolves in sheep's clothing. Given the vast list of animals available, it is startling that Jesus chooses a hen to describe his ministry leading up to Jerusalem. Why not the mighty eagle of Exodus? Why not the proud lion of Amos, mowing down his enemies of injustice with a roar? Why not the lurking leopard of Hosea, who tears open the callous covering of the people's hearts like open heart surgery? Compared to all these animals, a mother hen does not inspire much immediate confidence. No wonder the folks in Jesus' Jerusalem and folks today would rather put their trust in the foxes of power, competition, and coercion. It seems to make better sense. That's the way the world works. But Jesus will not compete with the beasts in the world's jungle on their same terms. What he becomes is a mother hen, one who dares to stand between the chicks and the powers of those who mean to do them harm. She has no fangs, no talons, no flexing muscles. All she has is her determination to shield her babies with her own flesh and blood. If the fox wants to lure them to his side, he will have to come across her dead body first. Her strength is that kind of hidden strength that appears weak at first glance, maybe even foolish, but goes to the finish line with tenacity. A Midwestern farmer once talked about a strange event that happened on his farm. One afternoon, a mother hen with a group of small chicks strayed too far from the chicken coop. When the rain started and then turned to hail the size of tennis balls, the mother hen might have reached shelter alone. But since her chicks could not, she called them to her and snatched them down to the ground underneath her wings. There the chicks were sheltered by their mother's body and outstretched feathers. When the storm had passed, the farmer went out to see how much damage had been done. The little chicks were still under the mother's breast of ruffled feathers, peeping along. But she was dead. The hail had been too heavy. Brothers and sisters, Jesus did for us far more than what that mother hen did for her chicks. Jesus Christ died with the feathers of his wings, his clothing ripped off, gambled over, and gained by Roman soldiers. He died with his breast exposed on a splintery cross. Many of his chicks, yes, his own disciples, had scattered in fear and trembling. It broke his heart, but Jesus did what a mother hen had to do. He gave himself up for the protection and life of his chicks, his holy wings pierced with nails, his breast punctured by the push of Roman spears. Like a perfect parent who felt the pain of her straying children, Jesus made plain to us all the compassionate heart of God upon that cross. Jesus made plain his stubborn determination to love and care for the very ones who would reject and mock it. He never walked away from his commitment to us. as the most blessed mother hen of them all. He still weeps at our rebellion to keep company with the foxes. But by his death, he destroyed death. By his death, he neutralized once and for all the foxes and powers of this world that impede us from being the persons God intended us to be.